Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, participant of International Conference on Mathematics and Science Education, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Before I present my paper, let me introduce myself. My name is Styawan. I am a chemistry education student, postgraduate program at Jakarta State University. And now I will present my paper entitled Inquiry-based learning and problem-based learning, which one has better effect on student critical thinking skills profile of thermochemistry. Background. Critical thinking skills are one of the most important student learning outcomes. Educational researchers throughout the world have long paid attention to the importance of critical thinking skills, both in the academic or in the workspace. But in Indonesia, the student critical thinking skills profile is still categorized into low. This is evidenced by data from the National High School exam result, which states that most students fail to solve questions that require critical thinking skill, such as horse question. Observation in West Bangka Regency show that most students have low critical thinking skills. Therefore, to improve student critical thinking skill, one way is use student-centered learning models. There are several learning models that can be used to improve student critical thinking skills, two of which are inquiry-based learning models and problem-based learning models. Many studies have shown that both of the inquiry-based learning model and problem-based learning model has a positive influence on student critical thinking skills. In addition, these two learning models are also suggested by the Ministry of Education and Culture to be used by teachers in implementing the 2013 curriculum. Therefore, the comparison of these two learning models is important to find out the most effective learning model for thermochemistry material. Method. The design of this study uses a quantitative descriptive approach. There are two experimental classes used. The first class applies the inquiry-based learning model and the second class applies the problem-based learning models. The research sample came from two science classes in West Bangka Regency, which were determined by a random sampling technique. The total sample that participated in this study amount to 50 students. The instrument used to collect the data of the study was a 25-question thermochemistry critical thinking skill test. The questions are developed based on indicators of critical thinking skills adopted from Fessione and Ennis, which consists of basic clarification, interpretation, inferences, analysis, and evaluation. Before being used, the question of critical thinking skills has validated both contents and empirically. The analysis showed that the reliability of the instrument was 0.73 with good criteria and was appropriate to be used. The critical thinking skills data in the form of score, then analyzed descriptively in three terms. 1. Based on average score of critical thinking skill each class. 2. Based on the percentage of critical thinking skills categories of both class. And 3. Based on the percentage of category of critical thinking skills on each aspect. Result. 1. The profile based on average score of critical thinking skills each class. Look at the table. Based on the table, it can be seen that class 11 MIPA 1 that applies inquiry-based learning model has an average score of critical thinking skills higher than class 11 MIPA 2 which applies problem-based learning models. Both classes have the same critical thinking category, which is the medium category. 2. The profile of critical thinking skill then analyzed based on the percentage of student critical thinking skills categories in each class. Profile based on the percentage of category are calculated based on the number of students who have very high, medium, low, and very low critical thinking category for each class. Based on this figure, the profile of critical thinking skill of students in IBL class is divided into very high, medium, and low categories, while the profile of critical thinking skill of students in PBL class is divided into high, medium, low, and very low categories. The profile of critical thinking skills then analyzed based on indicator of critical thinking skills. Look at the figure. This figure shows the profile of critical thinking skill of both class based on indicator of critical thinking skills. Based on the figure, it appears that the class applying the IBL model is superior in all indicators of critical thinking skill compared to the class applying the PBL model. Discussion. The comparison of critical thinking skill profile based on average score of critical thinking skills and percentage of critical thinking skill categories is class. Based on the average score of critical thinking of the two class 11 MIPA 1 has a higher score as compared to class 11 MIPA 2. The same results are also shown when the critical thinking skills profile is analyzed based on the percentage of critical thinking skills categories. Class 11 MIPA 1 has critical thinking skills that are more dominant in the medium and high categories, while class 11 MIPA 2 has critical thinking skills that are more dominant in the low and medium categories. So in short, the profile of student critical thinking skills in the IBL class was better than PBL class in terms of scores and categories of critical thinking skills in thermochemistry learning. And why do classes applying the IBL model have better critical thinking skills profile? There are some influencing factors. First, the student habits before the result is carried out. The second factors is the ability of the prerequisite in the PBL model. PBL model requires students to have skills in scientific literacy to deepen the exploration of the problem, work in group, and knowledge of other variables to solve problem. And the third factor is the characteristic of thermochemistry material. The critical thinking skills profile analyzed based on the indicator of critical thinking skills show that class 11 MIPA 1 is superior to all indicators of critical thinking skills compared to class 11 MIPA 2. In the evaluation indicators, the IBL class got an average score of 49.6 or in medium category, and the PBL class got an average score of 45.3 or in medium category too. In the analyzed indicator, the average score of critical thinking skills in the IBL class is 50.5 or in medium category, and the PBL class is 29.9 or in low category. In the inference indicator, the average score of critical thinking skills in the IBL class is 40.8 or low category, and the PBL class is 39.4 or in low category. On the indicator of interpretation and basic clarification, the average score of critical thinking skills in IBL class was 81.1 or very high category and 67.3 or high category, while PBL class were 60.4 or high category and 59.4 also in high category. Overall, we can conclude that class 11 MIPA 1, which applies inquiry-based learning, has a better profile of critical thinking skills than class 11 MIPA 2, which implement problem-based learning, both in terms of the average score of critical thinking skills, percentage of critical thinking skills categories, and its aspect of indicators of critical thinking. Thus, it can be concluded that the inquiry-based learning model has a better effect on the profile of student critical thinking skills than the problem-based learning model on thermochemistry learning. This is the end of my presentation. If you have some question, please write something. Thanks for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.